Hello, everybody. Jim Kean, WellnessFX, and we periodically had Brian MacKenzie, founder of CrossFit Endurance, stop by and talk to us about amazing topics. Today, we're talking about Brian's book, just came out this week, Power, Speed, Endurance. And Brian has been seen as a pioneer in this area of how to be more of an efficient endurance athlete, and has come out with really thought-provoking, I think, things that have advanced science quite a bit in this area. And so I thought it'd be great to bring Brian in and talk about his book and just have an informal discussion. So I have a couple questions, Brian. First of all, thanks. Great to see you again.
It's good to see you guys.
So when I was reading the book, it was really interesting to me just thinking about how any early pioneer has to run up against opposition and all that. And I really like the graceful way that you kind of took the comments in, probably took some pretty good shots, but actually thought about it and tried to respectfully respond. Probably got into it with some people, but in the end you said, you know what's important is actually finding the answer.
Yeah, let's just say it's a learning experience. And some of it may not have, I may not have responded in the beginning the appropriate way, but you learn and, you learn to take a lot of the criticism that you see and actually think about it. In keeping an open mind as to why you developed even what you developed. It was because you had an open mind and because you were looking at other things and, testing other things, and that's the only way you come up with, something new,
So let's take it from the beginning. Actually, you were a Lydiard follower to some extent, right? And you did long, slow distance, LSD. And
Yeah.
the whole thing, went through the body breakdown and started, initially went, woohoo,
Yeah.
times are going up,
Yeah.
look at me run as much as I can, and this and
Absolutely.
that, and then pretty soon you're saying, wow, I'm getting diminishing returns.
Absolutely.
What was your kind of key inflection point? And I know it's not like you had this aha one day, but there's probably cumulative, but what kind of brought you to that point?
My background started when I kind of got into coaching. My background started by getting introduced into mechanics, and so I would work on these things, but I wouldn't work on them extensively. I would work on them a little bit, and then I would go out and I would either swim, bike, or run. And swimming never ever really took on that long, slow distance approach, which most swimming does not. Weird. And the cycling and the running took on that whole approach, and after at first it was great, and after a while things start to flare up, things start to happen, but it wasn't just me, it was everybody. And it wasn't just the athletes I coached, but it was the coaches who were coaching other athletes that I knew, and everybody was getting banged up and hurt. And it was like, so we're not even playing a sport, we're not even doing a sport that involves contact with another human being. So it's not water polo, it's not football, it's not it's not any of these things that involve some sort of contact. It's you and moving in a monostructural way, with something. And so you start to think about it, and you're like, okay, so what am I doing wrong here? And people plant ideas, there's seeds along the way, and so you start playing with these things. And so we started implementing more of this skill-based training. Then we started implementing some of the strength and conditioning, because the fact is sure, you could go out and run and run and run, and you can attempt to change this whole pattern and put and work with better mechanics, but how effective is that going to be versus going in and actually doing some strength and conditioning in a functional manner and creating these new patterns that you don't have? And what we found is that, yeah, you can do it both ways, but one way is going to take a whole hell of a lot longer than the other way.
Right.
And it wasn't just one day we woke up and that was what happened. It was this slow, continual process of implementing more change, implementing more strength and conditioning, and we found it more or less the kind of the age group or level that you really just didn't need to spend a whole lot of time doing this stuff and to develop it. But yet you find out with elite level athletes who are having problems, who are breaking down, that hey, you're gonna have to back off in order to correct this, and let's get you a little stronger, and let's get you get some better patterns going on so that we can get you moving better and get you in the better position. And then we start to ramp things back up. So
Now, what's interesting to me about the whole grouping of athletes is, since I've been a kid, I was always one of those football player kind of, I guess, quote, skill type athletes.
Yeah.
And you always had this kind of demarcation of, I'm an endurance athlete, and kind of contained within that was that just means I need to go out and be a ground pounder or log a bunch of miles.
I know.
But I'm not coordinated, or I'm not highly skilled. I'm not one of those naturals or this and that. And that's why I'm not handling like a ball or something.
We used to have a joke where we'd hand an endurance athlete a jump rope and see what would happen. And I was one of those people that I like couldn't jump rope, and you hand it to them and they just this whole coordination thing happens that doesn't happen. So
and then what's really interesting about the book is there's a subtle underlying thread through the whole book of you, Mr. Endurance Athlete, can be actually truly a great, well-coordinated athlete.
Yes.
Learn these skills.
Which, ironically, extends the life of what it is you're doing.
Right.
And now you're no longer in pain, and now you're learning how to move in a better position. And, when was it that sitting down and this goes right to this, is what I'm talking about, is when was it sitting down in a chair was, this way, slouched over, when was that okay to do? When was it ever okay? And everybody understands, oh yeah, I should be sitting up, posturally correct, in the best position possible. Oh, but you're going to go out and run like this, and it's like, okay, wait a second. Now I'm starting to get this. And it's like, yeah. But how long does it take before you actually start to break down and get into that position where you feel comfortable? And is that the most appropriate position to be in? No, it's actually not what we found out.
So I have a leading question actually along this theme is I had a friend of mine who is kind of a multi-sports coach, and he trains a lot of different types of athletes. And he was telling me that in the last 10 years or so, the young athletes he gets some really just extraordinary athletes, but they seem to break down sooner and sooner. And his conclusion is, and then there's a couple studies he quoted to me, is that it's even more important today because a lot of times kids get channeled into specific activities from early on, and they actually don't learn the basic things like just run around for 8 hours a day, jumping off of rocks, landing correctly, random sprints, picking things up, throwing rock, all the stuff we associate with play. It's all very structured and channeled, and they become very unidimensional athletes. So he said that he actually finds that he has to spend more time teaching basic mechanical skills like skipping and whatnot than he ever had to 15 years ago.
It's absolutely, and I've done a little work with some rowers, but and the reason I bring this up is here's and at the high level, people who have been rowing for the last 5 to 10 years of their lives, so they're sitting down all day rowing.
Office workers.
Yeah, office workers, right? But they're cardiovascularly just in some incredible shape, and they've got a VO2 max of 80, right? But you get them up and have them do anything outside of that, and it's just knees diving in, slouching over, can't do this, can't get, and it's just like it's a horrific scene. And that can be changed, and it is changing, and we've seen it change, and we have a specific athlete that's changed with, and we got more athletes that are grabbing onto this. We've got a swim team that's following this. It looks different than most swim teams, and it's.
But what's interesting is you have. It almost feels like in the book you have an idea of a universal model of what a mechanically functional person should look like, regardless of sport, and you kind of draw from that model to get people to in different sports who've kind of gotten away from it because of the specialty nature of their sport, and get them to regress. Here's your model, and this is going to correct your imbalances, and then when you return back to your sport, you're going to be a better athlete.
Absolutely. While not getting rid of that sport. And we're still keeping that sport in there. And go ahead, have at it. And if you can progress and go out and do more. But don't lose focus or don't lose sight of the fact that you're gonna toss something out the window. You're gonna toss mechanics and everything out the door to go finish, some marathon in a specific time frame, and it's sure you can get there, but you can do it by approaching it mechanically efficiently.
So the thing, I read the book this weekend, and I've read quite a few books in nutrition, diet, obviously, and what we do at WellnessFX. They come in contact with a lot of different thoughts. And so when I picked the book up initially, it's big and it has lots of pictures when you flip through it and whatnot, and you start thinking, oh man, this is kind of going to be for the coach. Yeah. And what I was really delighted to find, because I'm actually doing my own prep, as we're all athletes, right? is it's actually kind of like I had a coach in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it explained a lot of different things and activities that I want to get better in to help me in my main sport. So I'm actually incorporating a lot of the mechanics from the running, like the drills against the wall, the lean forward. I thought the gravity example was great.
Mm-hmm.
It explained a lot to me. And also, I was just telling Brian before we turned the camera on that I bought a Concept 2 rower, and because I've been getting my butt kicked in rowing events recently, and I'm going to improve on that. And so there's both a prescriptive mechanical breakdown, and the big insight for me, I guess the rest of the world probably already knows this, but to me, the row strikes me as an Olympic lift or a deadlift, and the setup
Weird.
and all that. Yeah, and so... this is an incredibly approachable book, is what I'm trying to say, for anybody. It's not for a coach. It's actually that detailed because that type of explanation actually helps you become more efficient.
Yeah, and I mean that's why we did it the way we did it. I didn't want some. Although this is like a manual. It's a manual broken down so that everybody can understand.
Right.
Everybody, including a coach. And I even had a kid the other day who I gave the book as a gift to. He's like, "Dude, I don't read." I don't like reading. I said
diagrams.
That's why there's like 20,000 photos in it for you.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
So now, but
we do pictograms.
Yeah,
for the
there is some reading.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reading in it. But I mean, it's 412 pages. So, but it's got something in there for everybody. And sure you might, but mechanically we've broken down these positions and what they should essentially look like, and how to get, and a road to getting there. And that's not sure you've got this thing and you can go get it done, but there's still always the options of the things that we do with clinics and coaching and hands-on stuff and all that. So
the part of this is bringing lots of new trains of thought to classical endurance sports, but you're called CrossFit Endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what's the application back to CrossFit athletes? Because I mean, I think every sporting group sits kind of in their group going, "Oh, we're kind of superior and we don't fall into this stuff," and we all kind of fall victim to dogma and patterns and habits.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it gives a formal approach to how one might look at competing within CrossFit or within an event. Is okay, here's what the structure actually should look like. Maybe not, you don't need to implement the swim, bike, run per se, but we are showing you actually, throughout a day what your day should look like. Hey, maybe you should be doing some strength training here, then you should be doing some sort of CrossFit workout, and then, or even starting your day off with some intervals and skill work with running, swim, or bike, and then progressing into some strength or even some type of CrossFit workout that's going to challenge your weaknesses. And where that's never really been put out or published, yet.
Yeah, so I could go on all day about the book also, but I'll just keep listing a couple of my favorite parts of it. One thing I really liked was no longer do you have to you read these stories of the guy, all right, he won this marathon and he got up every single day and ran 2 hours in the morning. He'd sprint out at lunch and do like an hour at lunch, and then he would basically at night go running. I think, wow, what else does this guy do? Has he hold down a job, keep his wife happy, and do all these other things? And what was really interesting to me was just this kind of liberating aspect of, if you're putting in that much time, you're insane.
Yeah. It just gets to a point where it's, what are you really doing anything for the training? If you're just continuing to do more and more and more and more, versus you can always be working on. I mean, because I was talking about this with some friends the other day. What does a perfect squat look like? What does the perfect running form look like? What does the perfect deadlift look like? Nobody has that answer,
Right.
Nobody has that answer, but we do know that there's a better position you can always get into, and if you're constantly working for that better position and knowing where that breakdown is and where you break down and where you can challenge yourself and not work in those poor positions, then dude, it's so infinite. Because we just don't have the time. There's so much, there's so much you can do, and instead of going out and running necessarily, it's not that you don't have to go run for 2 hours, or you can still go run for 2 hours if you want, but what if you spent 30-45 minutes doing skill or prep work? you went out and ran an hour, and you ran it based on what you just were doing within the skill training, and developing your technique.
You know what's really cool about your book also is it's not, I'm Brian MacKenzie, I thought of all this stuff. You actually are very team-oriented in the book.
Yeah.
He basically worked with some amazing people to bring this in. For example, I thought the whole section with Kelly Starrett on mobility, but actually he appears early on in the book because you talk about positioning being everything. And so talk about kind of who helped you with this and just
Well,
how it came together.
Kelly and my relationship began a long time ago because Kelly spoke a language that like everybody could understood, and it was it was very refreshing because it was the first time I felt like there was somebody who I could really talk to and communicate with.
Yeah, somebody that you really appreciated their viewpoint.
Truly, and he had just finished his doctorate, and he was still working within the system, and he was developing all this.
Before he's K-Star, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he was K-Star, but nobody knew that, and
K-Star the star.
Yeah, and we spoke the same language very early on. And because of that, and because of who he is, and I'm open enough, and I'm not threatened by what he does. He's not threatened by what I do.
Right.
Even my business partner Doug Katona, he's not threatened by what I do, and I'm not threatened by what he does. And Chris Mitchellmore is one of our coaches within the swimming, and he is very tuned into what it is he's doing, and he understands it, and I like that, and I want to bring that in. And there's a reason why he coaches with us.
Yeah.
And I'm not of the mindset that I ever create that there's anything new in this world. And
and you don't lay it out like I'm the high priest of the new Brian MacKenzie school of physical religion.
Nope.
And my way is the only way. It's more of this is a living, breathing document and body of thought. I'm constantly trying new things on. There may be some things that I move away from in the future. Who knows?
Yep.
I'm just looking for the best answer.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah,
So talk about nutrition and diet and just kind of the things I think people don't focus on. Train. Okay, now I'm efficiently train.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem we run into, not only with endurance athletes but even athletes, is just quality of food. That's and people think that and a lot of these people have kids, and I've watched that very closely as people with kids, because once kids get on the carb bug, it's like you can't get them off the carb. So a lot of things get justified within the whole system of nutrition, and even as athletes, and the reason I relate that is because most people who are training actually have kids, and so things can get justified very easily. And then you have friends who are eating a certain way, and hey, I still go get coffee, at the coffee shop, and it is nothing but muffins and pastries and everything in there.
Glycemic assault.
Dude, it's an absolute glycemic assault. And there are literally still people out there, and there's stuff being published today by people who are teaching nutrition that this stuff is okay. That it's okay if you go work out. And I even saw some girl, and I won't mention who because I don't know her real name, but she's on Twitter, and somebody had retweeted something, and I clicked on it, and she literally is this Ironman athlete, but she trains so that she can eat cupcakes and has the ability to. And it's not just that she goes eats cupcakes all day long, but that's what she does. And people are of this mindset that if I go train, I get to eat, I get to do certain things.
Yeah,
so
the famous cheat days.
Absolutely. And there's even high level people who are out there and have lots of followers, and hey, maybe they're right in some way. I just haven't found it. And dude, from time to time, I cheat. I go off the reservation. But I also know that life would be better if I wasn't doing that.
Right.
If I wasn't, and I wouldn't feel like shit afterwards when I did that. So it all breaks down to quality of food, I think. I'm of that mindset. But what do those macronutrient ratios look like? Everybody's a little different. I'm a low carb guy. That's just the road I've gone down to, what I've felt the best on, how I, and how I typically eat. Most athletes from what I see are typically like most Americans, where they're afraid of fat. and they're just afraid of ingesting fat. And it's not the saturated fats. I'm talking about high quality fats, things like that. And even Erin, who, you know, we really dialed in her nutrition this last year. And she ate clean. She ate really clean. And, you know, she's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist now, but she was a 1-time Olympic gold medalist. She wanted another gold medal, and I immediately saw her nutrition, and it was a little higher in carb and less than fat. And I was like, hey, we need to change this.
Change that ratio.
We need to change that ratio. And even people in the paleo community, they're not on that low carb kick because they're eating lots of tubers, they're eating lots of sweet potatoes, they're eating lots of these things, and it's like, yeah, you're still sucking down high glycemic carbs, whether you like it or not. And yeah, it's tough to understand it's tough for your body to understand what low carb or how to burn fat efficiently is, even when you're eating like that. And so that's what we did with her, and we've done it with several athletes. I've done it with myself, and inevitably we find recovery's quicker. The body's system starts to function a lot cleaner, but that doesn't mean we're going and sucking down massive quantities of protein or sucking down absurd amounts of fat. Although fat does become the primary source of fuel, because what is it we're burning? I mean, fat, right?
Well, you know, it's interesting too, is you, in the book, it's really laid out well, and it isn't a huge deep dive. It's right there. For example, you're talking about legumes, right? And yeah, this is a carb. I know there's protein in there, but it's also very inflammatory because of lectin. Yeah. You know.
But the vast majority of people consider a legume or beans protein. Yeah. Especially vegetarians.
Right.
Because it's got some protein in it. Yet, no, the ratios aren't as such. It's a carb.
So anything else you'd like to tell us about the book? I mean, where do you see going with this afterwards? I mean, I assume there's going to be multiple editions.
There will be multiple editions. There's, I'm also working on new nutrition, some more nutrition stuff outside of this book. We launched 3 Fuel also, which is mentioned in the book, which is, this is what we're using to fuel athletes now. Right. And we're seeing tremendous results. I mean, I just got something back from a type 1 diabetic who did a half Ironman, and his blood glucose levels at 115 after the race, where he's like, dude, I've never had that. Like,
That's phenomenal.
I don't. Yeah. He's like, I don't know how that happened. And I'm like, well, look, it's the setup. It's the way we built this product, so that it actually, your body stabilizes and you can continue to function, and you're burning fat, and you are functioning well, because when you take in the sugar, you're just not burning fat anymore. Whether you like it or not, you're going to burn sugar.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's going to be many additions to come of this. There will be other projects. There's already other projects that have begun, and it's a fun ride.
Well, real cool. Well, we'll keep everybody posted. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.